This episode of the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast is sponsored by Jamie's Designs, your one-stop shop for custom laser creations, gifts, and home decor. Looking for a special present for a loved one? Stop by Etsy at Jamie's Designs Shop, or visit us on Facebook or Instagram by following the link in the show description, or type at JAMIESDES on your device. We are making your laser dreams come true. Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with Emmett Muckles. Emmett and friends, as I say every podcast, you are a billionaire. Remember, two people got together. Your mom probably had like a wine and your dad probably had a vodka, and things got a little cagey, and he shared some information with her and she accepted it, because when you give a woman something, she will make you something. And from that began the cosmic dance of you. 30 days into it, you were over 1 billion cells and you hadn't hit the planet. So be a human being. We got the human part right. Sometimes we struggle with the being part. But that's why I got my man, Thom King, to help us out so that we can stay nice, fit, and trim, and healthy in this life. What up, Tom?
Emmett, thank you for having me on. That was amazing.
Really?
I like the way you brought that. Oh, yeah. It's like the billion sales and stuff. I'm like, oh, that works. That really
Because most people think it's about money when I bring up my podcast.
Yeah.
You know, people who don't know me, and then I break it down to them. I use the hand reference. Mm-hmm. So and they're like, what's it about? I go, give me your hand. And they're like, you're going to touch me? I'm like, just hold it up. And I go, look at your hand between your largest finger and where it meets your hand meets your wrist. And they go, okay. I go, that's your hand, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, flip it back and forth. They're like, where is this going? I'm just like, just follow me. And they go, okay, yeah. I'm like, that hand is covered in cells, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, they're your cells, right? And they're like, yeah. How many of you think that are just in that hand? And I go, at least 1 billion. I'm like, this is about you. And they go, oh, snap.
I love that. And you know what's interesting too is that every 7 years
you
get a full new set of cells.
Yep.
So does that mean you're a different person every 7 years?
So I'll answer that at the end of the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, here's the first question I ask everyone because it is so vital to the cause. What got you to now?
Wow. I would say a series of events, most of them failures, that I was able to leverage into growth and learning so I didn't make those mistakes again. And somehow I've stumbled upon, I would say, a certain level of success, but I am still totally and completely a absolute work in progress.
We all are. I mean, and that's what I love about life. Don't be afraid to fail because, you know, like Thomas Edison, for the light bulb, he did umpteen trials that failed. But you know what he found out? What didn't work.
Right.
And that's what we're doing when we're testing the waters. When babies get off the floor and they start walking, they fall, they fail. Then they get up again and they try it and they eventually meet. Same thing. But you're a keto guy. And me and my wife were just talking about this today because I had a guest on and they were talking about how we damage ourselves, particularly in the industrialized nation. We cook food in these oils and we kill all the omega-3s and omega-6s. And a lot of times the oils are rancid because they're in light and they're not cooled, and how carbs kept us alive and fat, but we don't go through famine anymore. So, so help me out.
Well, so the keto thing, right? So my main hustle, right? My main hustle is I You know, I'm the CEO and chief food formulator and food scientist at Icon Foods. That's my main hustle. And so I'd go to trade shows and stuff like that. And so I often formulate stuff and supply ingredients to people that make products that are ketogenic friendly and low carb and stuff like that. Well, I was sort of an imposter in that industry because I wasn't really following it. I was drinking a lot of wine. I was eating a lot of pizza, a lot of sugar, a lot of cakes and pies and stuff like that.
Hold on. Were you going to a lot of trade shows?
Yeah. So I was carrying about 35 pounds of extra weight, which on my frame isn't that big of a deal because I'm 6'2", so I can cover it up well, right? But there was the other things that were happening, you know, like my blood pressure was through the roof. You know, about 2 in the afternoon, I'd start to crash and I'd have to have coffee. And then, you know, I was drinking so much coffee that I would get panic attacks occasionally and stuff like this. And it's like, you know, my life is not, it's not like going in the direction that I wanted to go into. And I wasn't living by a standard that I felt like I was comfortable with. And so all of this sort of culminated in this sort of, I guess, bottoming out, if you will. I was in Vegas. I was at a trade show, and one of my vendors like, hey, let's go have dinner. And I had a ribeye and a baked potato and a wine and cake. And I got up to my room and I looked in the mirror and I was just like, who are you? You know? And I've always been like this person who journals. Like in fact, I was just like showing somebody my journal as I just started. Good
grief. That's a thick journal.
It is. I just started this. And so, I mean, every day, you know, I do that because it sort of keeps me grounded. And so I was like, how am I going to make a lifestyle shift? And I think that whole bottoming out thing, you know, the pain of like who I felt I was exceeded all the pleasure that I was getting out of the cake and ice cream and wine and stuff like that. And that's when I'm like, made a hard stop. And it's like, I'm going to start writing this stuff down. So I started writing it down every day. Like, what am I going to do to make a lifestyle change? You know, I'm going to adopt a ketogenic lifestyle. What does that really mean? You know, is it a diet? Is it a lifestyle? How am I going to make these lasting changes? I started writing it all down. I started doing data collection, you know, like tracking my blood pressure, my weight, you know, my blood sugar, ketones and stuff like that. And at the end of the year, at the end of a year, I had a book. I had a complete book on what I did. And I had a friend who knew a publisher. I sent it to him. I said, hey, do you think there's anything you guys can do with this? And and then along came the book Guy Gone Keto. And
I like that. Guy Gone Keto.
It was Guy Gone Keto. And it was so weird because it was like number one on Amazon, and not for a very long period of time, like maybe a second. I had a screen capture of it, but people would come by like trade show booths and be like, hey, could you autograph your book? And I'm like, you want me to autograph this? It's like, I still didn't really feel like my authentic self, but you know, the process of just adapting that ketogenic lifestyle really worked for me, like energy wise,
right,
and just health focus and stuff like that. And it's pretty simple. It's just basically 70% healthy fats and 20% proteins and 10% carbs, but your carbs are all like vegetables and stuff like that, like not bread and rice and pasta and stuff.
Yeah, I am, you know, I realized after talking to several guests that I really don't understand oils. You know, and I think most people don't, because in this day and age, if you look, where do you go? You don't go to the encyclopedia like I did when I was a kid. You go online, right? Mm-hmm. And there is so much information, but there is a greater amount of disinformation or perspective.
Right.
And so
opinions.
You just leave, you know, it just leaves you kind of like, oh. And here's my pet peeve. I'm 54 years old.
Oh, you look good.
Thank you. The last thing I want is some 30-year-old telling me how to make my body out.
Well, clearly I'm not 30.
Right.
You can tell by my hair. My hair is not 30. I have maybe 30 hairs.
That's all right. I got a hole in my afro too, so that's all right.
So oils, yeah, that I would say that the safest oil, like the best oil that you could have, is cold pressed olive oil, and I would just even be careful of that because there people can sell olive oil with a certain percentage of other oils that are in it. So there's a brand that I buy. I get it online called Biryani, and it's made right at a olive plantation, and it's very, very good.
Is it a dark bottle?
It is a dark bottle, and I think that that's another factor too. Is that oils, if it increases their rancidity if you keep oil in something that the sun can hit, that UV rays hit. So like if you're going down the oil aisle at the grocery store, and you see Wesson oil and all these different oils in like a plastic squeeze jar that, I would say I would definitely stay away from those. I wouldn't describe those as heart healthy oils, but olive oil is definitely, if you get a high grade olive oil, you can drink it. I mean, it's going to be, it will actually put you into keto, because if you drink oil or you consume a lot of fat, your liver metabolizes fat, and when it metabolizes the fat, it turns it into ketones, and your body can actually function on ketones instead of glucose. So the one thing that people think, it's like, well, sugar gives you energy, but your body only needs about 4 grams of glucose to actually function. That's it.
4 grams.
That is like a tablespoon. 4 grams.
And what I found out is, and I go through these spurts because I'm in the Midwest and it gets cold and COVID happened. So I started gaining weight, right? I got like 220, maybe 220, which is heavy for me. I've been past that, but that was when I was in Bane mode, looking like, lifting weights and stuff. Yeah. But I found out that once I start to lose a certain percentage of body fat, that I'm not hungry anymore. I mean, it's like the fat is saying, feed us, feed us. And then once I get past that plateau, my wife's like, hey, come eat. I'm like, I'm not hungry at all. And so did you go through anything like that too? Like once you got down to a certain percentage or started to lose some body fat, your appetite changed?
Yeah, that's part of the process, right? So as you start to lose body fat, so what happens is your body stores fat, and basically it stores fat if you're eating too much glucose, but it stores more fat if you're eating too much fructose. So when somebody has like a big glass of orange juice for breakfast, you think, oh wow, that's fine, that's juice. Well, you would be better off drinking a glass of sugar water.
What about squeezed orange juice?
It doesn't really matter because juice, like fruit juice, is mostly fructose, right? But when you think of table sugar, right? So table sugar is actually what's called a disaccharide. It means that it's two molecules of sugar. One of the molecules is fructose, and the other molecule is glucose.
Oh, glucose.
And so your stomach actually will metabolize glucose, put it into your bloodstream. You get an insulin response. But the fructose part of it, right? The fructose part of it doesn't spike insulin. So, like if somebody who has diabetes has fructose, it won't really mess with their blood sugar. But check this out. So, our body doesn't really burn fructose. And I can give you an example of this. So like if, in the Midwest, you guys have bears. In the North, there's definitely bears, right? Brown bears and stuff like this. So bears, like right before they're going to hibernate, they're eating up all the fruit, like all the apples that fell off the tree and all of the rotten fruit that's sitting around. They're getting into it. And that's what attracts them to trash cans too, is that smell of fruit. Because when fruit is rotten, it's when it has the highest amount of fructose in it. Yeah. And so what happens is you eat the fructose, and your liver, which is is an amazing organ. It's so versatile. It does so many things. It converts fats to ketones. But what it does with with fructose is it converts it immediately to lipids, which means fats. So you have fructose, your liver converts it to fat, and either you can burn that fat, which you probably won't, or it will just sit on your body, and usually around your midsection.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's where I get it too. Like I put on 8 pounds over COVID, and it's just been it's been a struggle because you can't go anywhere, right? And then, I like beer occasionally and a cocktail, and that's a slippery slope.
You know what I figured out though, because I was going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And I started going back to the gym, but then it freaked me out because everybody I live in Indiana.
Yeah.
People, they don't think that anything can infiltrate Indiana. So there's just maximum people with no mask on in the gym. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm canceling this membership. So
Smart.
I started doing yoga for like 30 minutes a day.
My favorite.
Because I also found out during COVID, I was sitting on the couch one day, and I had to do the rocker thing to get up because my body was tightening. So I was like, maybe this is a twofold win. And,
Yes.
And it's helping because I had that soreness that you get from going to the gym and lifting weights because you're basically doing body movements.
Yeah.
But that works. Now, how does stevia come into play with the body?
Well, that's a good question. I ran into stevia back in like 1992. I was living in Arizona, and I ran into this guy who came back from Paraguay, and he had all these jars of different plant matter, and one of them was filled with like this green paste.
You got to watch out when people come with plant matter. You know that, right?
Absolutely. But he was an older guy. He's like, "Hey, try this out," and so I tasted it, and I was amazed because it was like 25 times sweeter than sugar. It was just a plant. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And he's like, this is stevia. And I'm like, I don't even understand this. How could this plant be sweet without having any sugar in it? And so it has a compound in it that are called glycosides. In fact, the compounds in the stevia leaf are called stevioglycosides. And your body recognizes them. It's like, hey, we know what this is. It's a glycoside. Like if you pick a piece of grass, like and chew on the root, you're like, hey, that's a little sweet. Those are glycosides. Those naturally exist in nature. So our body knows what to do with it. It's like, oh, there's no sugar in this. We don't need to kick in an insulin response or anything else. So when you have stevia or another one called monk fruit's also super sweet. When you have those, your body knows exactly how to process them. And you don't get like an insulin response. But what's interesting is if you drink a diet soda, right, that has sucralose or aspartame or any of the artificial sweeteners, like your body doesn't know what that is. It goes into the body and it's like, hey, this is sweet. We don't have any receptors for it. So we're going to act like it's sugar. And that's where you get like an insulin response. And your body really just believes that it had sugar. The only thing that you get that I would say there's a benefit out of artificial sweeteners is the fact that there's calorie abatement. So you're not getting as much calories, but your body still is acting like it had sugar. And that's what you're trying to work with is like, hey, I don't want an insulin response. Because if you keep hitting an insulin response, then your body becomes what's called insulin resistant. And that's when you start getting belly fat because your body's like, can't produce insulin fast enough to make that go away.
You know what I found out when most people switch to the artificial sweeteners, especially if they have a sweet tooth or they have a Mountain Dew tooth, is
one tooth.
Yeah, one tooth. What they do is they overcompensate. So they say, oh, this doesn't have so-and-so in it, so I'm going to drink 5 times more. And usually, and I've seen this in people who are obese and morbidly obese, and I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, well, it's diet. I'm like, but it's still calories. You're drinking your calories. You're drinking 15 of those in a day.
Right.
You're still pumping those calories in, and they're empty as all get out. And they're like,
well, if they're drinking diet soda and they're drinking like 10 or 15 of those, they're not getting a bunch of calories. But what's happening is they're getting an insulin response. So their body thinks it's had sugar. So that is why they're not getting skinny off drinking off of drinking diet soda. And you're not going to get skinny doing that. You could get Parkinson's, but and eventually you'll get skinny, but you don't want to get skinny that way.
Yeah, I know a guy who used to drink like a 2 liter a day
of diet soda.
Yeah,
that's a bad idea.
He was like, "Yeah, I'm almost losing weight." I'm like,
almost. I'm almost losing weight.
Right. So, how did these two worlds combine? I mean, like, how did you get into the food industry?
Oh, well, so when that guy showed me the green paste and I tasted it, it was like taking the red pill. Like all of a sudden, I'm just like, how is this happening? Like, how is this leaf so sweet? And how do we get the sweetness out of the leaf, right?
Yeah.
And so I had like a daytime job. I actually worked in the entertainment industry, and I was obsessed with it. I'm like, how do we get this out? So I'd contact various chemists and be like, hey, do you guys have an idea of how we can extract these sweet constituents out of this leaf? Because I have an idea that we'll be able to take this particular compound, this sweetener, and we'll be able to, bring it to, food manufacturers as an ingredient. And that was my whole goal. And I wanted to build this consumer brand and then take that consumer brand equity and then sort of parlay that into an ingredient company. And that's exactly what happened. And now, I mean, we're a multi-million-dollar company and we ship all over the world and we're in a lot of products. That's probably something that you've even had.
I know you're sending me a gift, but I've been so busy and I apologize. Apologize to Myra for me for not getting back to her.
I will. She's a tough one.
Yeah, and I could tell. And so what are all the products that you guys promote? Do they stay in the healthy-ish range for consumers?
I think they stay in the healthy-ish range. I mean, our ingredient side, that's Icon Foods, and we supply ingredients to like health nutrition companies that make keto products. But the Guy Gone Keto, like the book that I wrote, Guy Gone Keto.
Yeah.
Well, so what they're sending you is the Guy Gone Keto condiments. So I made ketchup, I made barbecue sauce, I made teriyaki sauce, sweet chili sauce, like because I couldn't have it.
My wife is going to lose her mind.
The spicy barbecue sauce is really good, and the spicy garlic ketchup is really good.
My son's going to lose his mind.
I just made that stuff because I couldn't have ketchup, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what am I going to put on this burger? There was nothing, and the thing is like if I put regular ketchup on it, regular ketchup has more sugar than ice cream.
Yeah.
So it's like taking a scoop of ice cream and putting it on your hamburger. It didn't really make any sense to me. And it's like, well, I mean, I have a food technology background, so I just went into the lab and I'm like, I'm going to make ketchup with no sugar in it. And I made ketchup, and then I made barbecue sauce, and then I made teriyaki sauce, and then I made sweet chili sauce. And basically anything that I run into that has sugar in it that I crave, that I want, I go in the lab and I make it sugar-free.
Now, I want to ask you this question, and it just popped into my head.
Okay.
So, cooking is chemistry. I would
say cooking, some parts of cooking are chemistry. I would say baking is definitely chemistry. I would say it's alchemy.
So
it's alchemy.
With that, are there some things, some food items that just don't work well without that component that we're historically used to, like sugar and salt and so forth and so on?
Yeah, that is a really, really, really solid question. And so the answer to the question is yes. So there's an effect. It's called the Maillard reaction, and it's actually a chemical reaction between proteins and sugars. So you could see it happen. Like if you take some sugar and you put it in a pan and you heat it up, it really doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then you put in some cream, that's got proteins and fats in it, and you stir it around. And by the time it hits 180 degrees, you've got caramel. I mean, that's how they make caramel. It's that easy. Drop a little salt in, you got caramel. So if if you're using a sweetener that is unable to participate in Maillard, you're not going to get caramelization. You're not going to get it activating leavening. So bread's not going to raise and stuff like that.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking of too.
Yeah. So you don't get that. But here's the thing. I don't just use stevia in my condiments. And when I formulate other beverages and products for people, I've been using this new sweetener. And I've been working with it for 5-6 years, and it's called allulose. And it's actually a rare sugar. It exists in nature, and it's about 70% is Swedish sugar, but it doesn't really have any calories. And it doesn't really have any carbohydrate impact. So you can, if you're on keto, if you're on low carb, you can use allulose. So that's what I used in all of my condiments, because you want that Maillard reaction, right? Like if you're doing barbecue, and you put that barbecue sauce on the outside, you want that crisp, outer layer.
I haven't eaten today. Why are you doing this to me?
Because I'm that guy.
Right. So if you can explain this for me, because I like to break things down. And a guy told me a long time ago, he's like, explain it like I'm stupid, Emmett. I don't know what you know. So what is ketosis and what is a keto diet? Because there's a lot of stuff out here. And if you, like I said, you go on the internet, you get one thing and then you get the exact opposite.
Yeah, 100%. Because there's a lot of people that even promote different types of keto, right?
Exactly.
But nutritional ketosis really follows a 70% fat, a 20% protein, and a 10% cruciferous vegetables, right? So you can have salmon, you can have avocados, you can have nuts, you can have steak, you can have anything that has fat in it. So you want to eat a lot of fat. Preferably, you want to eat healthier fats, like the fats you find in salmon or the fats that you find in nuts or avocados. Those are better for you because they've got omega-3s and omega-6s that are heart healthy. So you want to stay away from, fats that are saturated fats like milk and cheese. Like I have some cream once in a while. I am a cheese addict.
Me too.
But I'm into funky cheese. Like when people come into my office while I'm eating cheese, they're like, "What is that? That looks disgusting. It smells even worse." So,
once this is over, I have a cheese story for you. Early on in my wife's and I,
nice.
Yeah, it was special. Remind me to tell.
I will. I mean, the expression "who cut the cheese," right?
Yes.
I mean, there's a reason for that. So those are the cheeses I generally am drawn to. But so back to keto, it's like if you have to track what you eat, right? So you're eating 70% fat, you're eating 20% protein, and then the carbs that you're having are usually broccoli, lettuce, things that grow above ground. You want to stay away from potatoes. And so when you do that, right? When you do that, you put your body almost into a state of starvation, and you don't feel like you're starving. But what happens is your body's like, holy crap, we don't have enough carbs and we don't have enough sugars. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take all that fat that we're eating, we're going to convert that. It's going to go to the liver, and we're going to convert it to ketones. And so your body will burn ketones just like it would burn glucose. So think of glucose. Glucose is going to be like jet fuel, and it's going to burn super hot, super fast, and then you're just going to crash.
Yeah.
And if you can't burn it all, it's just going to collect on your body. When you burn ketones, it's a completely different experience. Like when you get into keto, it's like somebody turned the lights on. You're like, whoa, clarity, energy level, you feel like lighter, stronger, everything else, because now you've moved from burning glucose into burning ketones. So your body's actually burning fats.
So how does that work with, depending on your age? Because, when I was 20 to 30 something, I could just look at TV and just burn massive calories. It slowed down a bit, a lot. So now if I sit, because I'm at my desk pretty much all day, except if I'm traveling. And then that's when I began to notice, is like, those jeans that I bought I can't button them. I can't even zip them. How did this happen? And it dawned on me. I was sitting for 7 hours, which is poor for your posture, your back, your skeletal structure, all this.
Sure.
That's why I got the yoga. But is there a difference in your approach to ketogenic eating at a specific age or in age demographics?
I think the older you are, I'd say the more important it is for you to adopt a ketogenic lifestyle. Like, I remember when I was in my 20s. I mean, I could stay out all night.
Oh, yeah.
Go to bed at 5 a.m., wake up at 6, do it all again.
Yep.
Now, if I go to bed after 10, I'm wrecked the next day. It's like, what happened? I don't even know what's going on here.
Right.
And another thing, too, is like, so I just turned 60, and that was like, pivotal moment for me. But what happens is as you get older, your metabolism starts to slow down.
Yeah.
You know, you can't burn the sugars, you can't burn the carbs like you used to. And so I think as you get older, right? Like I would say after 40, it's like you should really start looking at, doing intermittent fasting and coupling it with a ketogenic diet. Not only just because it'll help you maintain a healthy body weight, but the real benefit from it is that it will help with neurodegenerative disease like dementia and Alzheimer's. Okay. So like dementia and Alzheimer's now are being referred to as type 3 diabetes.
Oh, really?
Yep. And so what happens is like, if you have a lot of glucose in your body, and your body's never in a fasted state and you've got just like all this glucose, your body is like going to be running constantly. It's not going to be able to shut down. And so when you go to sleep at night, right, when you're in deep sleep, what happens is you'll get a cerebral flush. So like the fluid inside of your brain will actually flush out, through your spinal cord. And then all of the peptides that you've burned in your brain, like thinking and stuff like that, that ash that's created from burning actually washes out. It is literally ash. And so if you don't have that cerebral flush, right? If you don't have yourself in a state of a fasting state or have your body depleted, you're not going to have that flush. And if you don't have that flush, all of the ash that's in there, all of the material that needs to get out of your cranial fluid starts to build up on your brain, on the outside of your brain. And it's called amyloidal plaque or Lewy body plaque. And amyloidal plaque is what is associated with Alzheimer's, and Lewy body plaque is what is associated with dementia. And so protect your brain with keto. I mean, that is a really, really beautiful part of it. And I mean, they discovered that years ago in treating children for epilepsy, is that when they put them on a keto diet, it completely ended their epilepsy.
All right, first of all, your book. Get your book, right? Guy Gone Keto. Get your book. But I'm a supplemental reader. I need to fact check. I need to read something again that's going to back up what I just read. What did you investigate to begin your journey into gathering your knowledge base?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And so I started following people. I started following PhDs online. Like I started following PhDs and seeing what particularly PhDs that focused on metabolic disease. And I started following them and seeing some of the stuff, the papers that they were writing. And then I started seeing some of the conferences they were going to. And that's when I started going to these conferences, because I wanted to learn about metabolic disease and how metabolic disease started. And that's what led me more into, the neurological side of things, because I started researching a place called the Charlie Foundation. And the Charlie Foundation was set up by, doctors and PhDs to treat children for epilepsy. and I started reading their research papers. And so, that's where my obsession came from. It's just looking at PhDs and understanding exactly, the things that they're studying. Because, now it's like that I've followed so many PhDs. Like when I go to the doctor, like a regular doctor, I'm like, wait a minute, what you're saying doesn't really make sense to me. And well, you're a doctor and that's great, but I think PhDs know a lot more because they're constantly studying and
they're researching. Doctors
just work.
Don't get me started.
Well, I'll be getting some serious DMs on my social media for saying that.
It's all good. It's all good. Now, we're going to go through an exercise here.
Let's do it.
So you got to close your eyes.
Sally squats.
No. Okay. You got to close your eyes.
Okay.
And I want you to imagine it's a Saturday, family's gone, you got the house to yourself, you have some beverage that you're chilling with, and some, like me, I like documentaries or whatever you want to watch, and you're like, I'm going to do nothing. And you sit there and everything's cool. You're enjoying yourself. All of a sudden the doorbell rings and you get up and you're like cursing a little bit, like, what the hell? And you open the door, and at the front door is your 21-year-old you. And he looks at you and goes, whoa, you look pretty fit. What can you tell me that may ease this journey a little more or get me there just a little earlier?
I would tell my 21-year-old self to believe in yourself, to have confidence in what you do. I would also, probably the greatest piece of advice that I give my 21-year-old self is to accept the things you can't control. Accept those with grace, because there's things you're not going to be able to control. You're not going to be able to control other people. You're not going to be able to control their behavior, their opinions, anything else. You're not going to be able to control time or loss. Everything in the world is permanent. And then I would say, and really try to create the determination and the drive and, the endurance to change the things that you can change, like your thoughts, your habits, how you spend your time, whom you spend your time with. And then I would also say, be wise and understand the difference between the two.
Awesome. That is so awesome. So what are you doing in this COVID time? Are you doing any those, what are those things, Zoom meetings that everyone's like 50 million people are on, or Facebook Lives and Insta spamming?
No, I had a 4.5 hour Zoom meeting this morning. That started at 8 a.m. and I was here at like 5:30 preparing for it.
Yeah.
That was, and that's how I'm doing most of my meetings and stuff, is through Zoom.
Yeah.
And, because we, particularly in Oregon, because people in Oregon realize that COVID isn't fake, that it is real. So,
you guys at the front line.
Yeah, as opposed to the other places where they're like, "Hey, this is fake. This is
welcome to Indiana."
Really happening. I have relatives that believe that.
Welcome to Indiana.
I heard one of my cousins. My sister called me, and like one of my cousins started yelling at her daughter who had COVID, and said, "You get your ass out of bed. You're not sick. That COVID's fake." It's like
Wisconsin, right?
Yep. Well, you lived in Michigan,
I live in Indiana.
That's right. You border Kentucky.
No, I'm by Chicago. So.
Oh, that's better.
Right? No,
better-ish.
So
no.
I live in the country though. I live in Indiana, near Chicago though. But because of my business, frequently, like a couple times a month, I end up in Wisconsin because I work in solar as well.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I'm all over the place. But the Midwest is we are special. That's all I say about it. I've been to Portland. I really dug it, except I felt like I'll put it to you like this. So
you put it to me.
It's going to be really easy. So you see this marker I have here? Now,
Yeah.
Picture a sheet of paper, and I just go dot.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, the diversity in Portland is not vast.
But it was so chill. It was perfect for me because I'm a posh hippie.
Nice.
Oh,
Hippies
dude.
are good.
It was great. Anywho, I want to really thank you for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
Thank you, Emmett. I appreciate that. This was a lot of fun. I'd have to say this is my funnest podcast.
Awesome. That is so dope. Well, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? Today, if you're listening to my voice, you got another chance. And I want you to realize what we are. We are human beings. Let's break that down. Let's go to the etymology, or my etymology of it. We are people under a sun that gives us our hue. We are made in the image of man. Now, here is where we start to F up the being part. We get into our egoic self and we think it's all about us. But just think about this. If each one of us realize that we're here to experience and serve others, we are here to experience and serve others in the being. That would create the utopia. Think of it like a mom has a child. She will do anything for that child. That's how you're supposed to love. But first, love starts with yourself. So remember, when you get out the shower, walk up to the mirror in your booty naked self and admire it. I need you to really admire it because we cannot make you. Whatever, the moles, the hole in your afro, the jiggly arm piece, chicken wing, the back fat, whatever it is, it's you. And you have to be in love with that because you can't love anybody else unless you love yourself first. Now, I'm going to tell you about the cells and the self. So when you get hungry, it's not you that's hungry. It's your cells. Get it? Your cells create the self. So remember, feed yourself in your mind, body, and spirit because we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. Till next time, love you all. Deuces. Peace. I'm out.